At a Manhattan courthouse today, Changpeng Zhao, better known as CZ, was found guilty of several charges of fraud and conspiracy in relation to the collapse of his company, Binance. The fall of the world's largest crypto exchange, sparked by tweets from FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried, revealed ongoing fraud in the company regarding misstatements to banks and investors, conspiracies between CZ and his staff to avoid regulators, and CZ's willingness to turn a blind eye towards bad actors using Binance to launder money. He's expected to be sentenced to... Wait, what's going on?
What the was that? But could that alternative reality come to pass? It might not be as far from our timeline as you think. This week on Coinage, just how similar SBF, FTX, CZ, and Binance actually are. Here at Coinage, we've spent the last few weeks going deep on the SBF legal defense. I was one of the last journalists to meet SBF at his house, where SBF outlined his planned defense. I was in the room when SBF got sent back to prison. I've probably read over 1,000 pages of lawsuits in the past few weeks, and it's starting to get to me. Last night, I even Googled contraband cucumber. But in this episode, we are planning to lay out another pillar of SBF's defense that, unlike the last two, is unlikely to appear at trial. Mainly that he doesn't think Binance, the world's biggest crypto exchange, led by its CEO Changpeng Zhao, or CZ, is completely innocent in sparking the bank run that led to FTX's collapse. But here's the thing, SBF isn't charged for the downfall of FTX, but rather a lot of things that he allegedly perpetrated while it was still running. And that's really important. The collapse of FTX may have exposed the fraud to the world, but he's not charged with the collapse. He's charged with the fraud. And look, we all know he's kind of right about CZ. CZ's tweets definitely helped spark a bank run at FTX. Though from our reporting, it's clear that FTX was a house of cards waiting to collapse. So how much can you blame the big bad wolf when you've constructed a house made of straw? But what if CZ isn't the big bad wolf? What if he's just another little piggy? Is his house made of bricks or sticks?
We are very confident that our practices comply with the industry requirements.
Let's put them side by side. A young CEO with experience in high-frequency trading decides to launch a crypto exchange with its own token and pro-level trading tools without thinking too hard about regulatory compliance or following the law. It quickly becomes incredibly popular, making him incredibly rich, though he promises to give away 99% of his wealth. Along the way, though, the CEO runs into trouble. Too much power resides at the top, though it's not clear if he sees that given his rapidly expanding ego. Yet he persists in launching a regulated US-based exchange while lobbying regulators around the world for preferred treatment. This US-based exchange is seemingly separate, but really controlled by the man at the top. And when regulators start to take a closer look at the exchange, they find some disturbing signs. Commingling of funds in an account controlled by the CEO's personal trading firm trading on the exchange, staff being directed to use encrypted messaging apps to communicate. We all know how the story ends. FTX collapses, right? Wrong, because this isn't a story about FTX. It's also about Binance. Everything I just said is still true when applied to CZ. Binance has its own US-based exchange, Binance US, and its own exchange token, BNB. Binance US's staff have even complained of feeling like puppets for CZ, who has so much control over his empire he once reportedly approved a $60 expense for office furniture during a month Binance generated $700 million in revenue. Most importantly, CZ and Binance have their own set of civil charges from the SEC and CFTC. 20 of them, in fact, and CZ hasn't been charged criminally yet. And maybe I've spent too much time deep in the FTX case, but a lot of these allegations rhyme. For example, take Alameda Research. As we've covered, it was SBF's company, where SBF let his staff trade and act as a market maker with SBF's funds on SBF's exchange, where it was exempt from the rules governing every other trader, at least in part. Alameda also accepted deposits from FTX's customers and acted as the exchange's primary market maker. All right, so that's Alameda. Meanwhile, the SEC and CFTC allege that CZ has a company called Merit Peak Limited that, well, let's see here, is owned by Zhao, operated by Binance employees, trades with Zhao's own funds, acts as a market maker on Binance and Binance US, and is exempt from, quote, anti-fraud or anti-manipulation surveillance or controls, along with the around 300 other in-house Binance accounts that trade on the exchange. The company also allegedly accepted funds from depositors for other purposes. In Merritt Peak's case, it accepted billions of dollars from users who wanted to buy BUSD, Binance's stablecoin. The SEC goes further and alleges that CZ had another company, Sigma Chain, that engages in wash trading on Binance US in order to juice up its volume. The SEC claims that during certain periods, the majority of the volume on Binance US for certain assets was just Sigma Chain wash trading. Also, Sigma Chain bought CZ an $11 million yacht, which he has yet to invite me on. Merritt Peak and Sigma Chain sound a lot like Alameda Research by a different name. But none of these complaints are new, and the charges against Binance are all civil. SBF has also been criminally charged. But again, SBF isn't charged with the collapse of FTX. He's charged with fraud that led to FTX's collapse. So many of the warning signs are shared by Binance too. CZ's centralized control over his empire, the lack of board oversight, the sparring with regulators, the encrypted and self-deleting internal communications, the trading firms using his money to trade on his exchange without restrictions, the global network of shell companies, the exchange tokens, the wash trading, the facade of a US exchange, and the suspicious movement of funds. And we haven't even gotten into the mountain of evidence that CZ looked the other way while unsavory groups like terrorists and criminals used Binance to launder money. We asked Travis Kling, who lost his investment fund in FTX's collapse, whether he'd feel any safer on CZ's exchange.
I have been talking shit publicly to Changpeng for about 8 months nonstop on Twitter. And I, for better or for worse, am kind of one of the folks leading the charge against that guy. I take pride in that. I think he's a criminal. I think he's a very bad actor. I think he's very bad for the space. I think Binance.com is very bad for the space.
We also talked with crypto lawyer James Metalawman Murphy about the apparent similarities, and he told us that the DOJ itself is split on whether or not to charge Binance criminally.
The reports out there is that there's a significant disagreement within the Department of Justice itself, and that the people closest to the investigation believe that they have enough evidence to bring charges and make them stick. And it's the bosses in Washington, D.C. that have been pushing back and not approving that action.
Another recent report from Semaphore noted that the DOJ is worried that bringing criminal charges against CZ could spark a run on the exchange. Kind of like how CZ sparked a run on FTX, right? And that's the uncomfortable question to consider. Is it possible or even probable that in an alternative reality, Binance could have collapsed before FTX? And if SBF isn't technically facing jail time because of FTX's collapse, does the fact that Binance hasn't collapsed yet really mean anything? It's hard to think of a reality in which prosecutors would have brought charges against SBF unless FTX collapsed, which brings us to CZ's role in all of that. Keep in mind, Binance had been an original backer of FTX, and as a result, received a large allocation of FTX's proprietary token, FTT. Alameda, SBF's trading fund, predominantly used its stash of FTT to borrow cash. That resulted in a war chest, at least on paper, so long as FTT didn't collapse in price. If it was trading at the $60 a coin it was in 2021, that meant Alameda could borrow billions in cash against its billions in FTT tokens. But that also meant if anybody, for whatever reason, wanted to, bankrupt FTX and Alameda, a surefire way to do it might be to trigger a collapse in FTT's price. By, tweeting that you're going to dump hundreds of millions of dollars worth of FTT on the open market, which of course is exactly what CZ did as FTT crashed by 95% in a week. And look, as a firm believer in all is fair in love and war, I have to agree with what Travis Kling tells us. Sam isn't necessarily off the hook just because CZ took the shot at checkmate when he did.
With Changpeng publicly saying that he was going to sell all this FTT, Changpeng did not make him commit this fraud. And so trying to blame Changpeng for the collapse of FTX, while I get why you could put the blame on him, I don't really think of it like that. Sam committed fraud on his own. He is an adult.
That's right. Sam is an adult. CZ is also an adult. And in this game, we all get to make adult decisions. And as adults, we all realize certain decisions open ourselves up to certain risks and certain rewards. For Sam, one thing is obviously clear. He miscalculated the risk part of that equation. But the reward isn't quite what it's been made out to be. As much as you may think SBF used this whole FTT stash solely to prop up FTX and Alameda, it's important to point out that a large part of the borrowing and reason there may have been such a large attack vector in the first place for CZ to take advantage of was due in part to SBF's attempts to bail out a cratering crypto industry. When BlockFi collapsed, SBF stepped in. When Voyager collapsed, SBF stepped in again.
A lot of people saw you as throwing a lifeline to the industry.
I mean, I would love someone else to go backstop the industry. I think it's better for me to do it than for no one to. But look, if someone else wants to do it, like, absolutely be my guest. We've reached out to a lot of people. Has not ultimately ended, in the way that I think we were hoping it might.
And bailing out an industry filled with cratering lenders was one move clearly CZ said he never had any interest in.
So that was surprising even to me, to be honest. I tried not to comment on our competitors, industry peers, but I would never do that type. I would never do that type of deal. I would never say I would invest in a company and then you loan me some money. I would just not invest in that company. I'll keep my money.
CZ just realized what everyone else watching FTX's incredible lending spree had realized as well. If you take FTT down, you take FTX down. And Binance's own token is also reaching its lowest point since before FTX's collapse. It may be uncomfortable to ask about that what if.
They are in a category 5 shitstorm with U.S. regulators. Not U.S. regulators, regulators all over the world.
Yeah.
They are in all kinds of trouble with folks. And there's a very real possibility that they don't exist 12 months from now.
Bank runs in crypto happen all the time, and it's not insane to speculate on what could cause Binance to crash. Maybe it's criminal charges being filed. Maybe it's Binance getting hacked, or a vulnerability is discovered in BNB, or CZ gets hit by one of those men in black things and forgets all of his passwords. And I can get why the DOJ doesn't want to be the big bad wolf who blows Binance down, even if that's something CZ never considered before blowing down FTX. But Binance is a house of sticks. And I don't think the government is going to wait for a strong wind, especially after it failed to prevent any of the other crashes that have rocked crypto in the past few years. So CZ, if SBF gets convicted, I'd watch your back. The feds might be coming for you next. I'm Zach Guzman. This was Coinage. Stay safe out there.